Hey everybody, the campaign is moving right along, and once again, we are moving right into the recap. This session revolved around four main decisions. The first decision was at the top of the session, which was where the group is going to go. They had a few options I discussed last time, and this time it didn't take them very long to go with Gadramon's plan to visit the village of Greytooth to get some allies. They got there, they met Tarzo, and they found out that Tarzo has 22 warriors with him in this village of outcasts who are completely ready to follow Gadramon's command, go to Malima, and save Rosemary, possibly kill Halstor, and hopefully kill the White Witch. They started formulating a plan. There's going to be this infiltration. The warriors are going to cause a distraction. I'm sure that'll come together more later, but they really have a clear direction of how they're going to get to Malima, and this group is going to help them do it. Decision point 2 was how to actually get to Malima. There's still many miles and 2 days of travel from where they are now to where they want to be. So I gave them the option of taking the Ambrian Road straight to Malima. This would be the probably quickest and most direct path, but they would be out in the open for other Karohar and who knows what else to see them. The second option offered by Tarzo was to go into a corrupted section of the wood, which would be sneaky, but could be more dangerous. And then I texted Crim's player on the side to let him know that he knows a third path, an elven tunnel. And the way he discreetly described this to the group as a shortcut, they immediately went with this plan and went into the elven tunnel, where they came across some elven songs tempting them towards these strange waters that lulled them into a slumber. Gadramon was able to get everybody out of the slumber and successfully be a leader per his role and per his ability. I love when the metagame and the game works together. The mechanics and the flavor and the story all like that, but that's an aside. Anyway, we have an elf fight. There are three elves that were kind of the sirens in this situation. They kind of trap Seldar, and they I believe it was it was Magnolia who jumped down and crushed one of the elves, and then the rest of them drew weapons on Seldar, and then two Marlets showed up and were very scary to Mira and an NPC, and Lifway showed up. Lifway used maltransformation to turn Magnolia into a rabbit, but Magnolia was still able to distract her as a rabbit and cease the maltransformation on her. And then there was a moment when they're all telling, well, I think it was Gadramon and Crim. No, Crim, who was like, this can stop. We don't have to fight. No more elves have to die. No more of us have to die. Please, let's talk this through, Lifway. And Lifway is calling out, and she says something to her elves in Elvish. Only Crim knows. The elves say something back in Elvish. Only Crim knows. The elves keep fighting. Both of the early summer elves are killed. Lifway gets free of her trap of Magnolia, and everything is tense, and Crim and Lifway go off to have a conversation privately. Only Crim knows what was said there. Crim returns, and Lifway offers the group a final decision. The group can fight Lifway and her Marlets, and they will probably win. But what Lifway wants is Crim. She wants for Crim to come with her. And for this, she will allow the group to pass. She will call off the Marlets, and everyone will be safe, but Crim will be gone. This starts out as an ultimatum, but through some conversations, a third option emerges that if Krim doesn't love Lifway, if he doesn't want to go with her and be forced to go with her, then she doesn't have a stake in any of this, and she will leave Krim behind, and she will let the party pass because none of this matters. Krim and Gadramon have a private conversation. Krim starts revealing some information to him that maybe Malima is not as bad off as the group thought, and maybe Rosemary is not the good witch that they thought. Gadramon doesn't really know what to do with this information yet, but when they all go back to the group and more Marlets are called in to create some more tension in the situation, Krim speaks up and says, "I'll go." So Lifway calls off the Marlets. She embraces Krim, and the two of them disappear in an earthen cocoon that takes them out of the situation, and the rest of the group is free to move forward. That is where the session ended, except for one other little end note. The prologue for this session was also the final flashback. We hadn't seen Magnolia yet, and the flashback we saw was 14 years ago, her emergence as an ogre, her first memory, where she stumbled upon the corpses of 4 elk surrounding a pond, at the center of which was Rosemary. Magnolia proclaims her an angel and swears that she will protect Rosemary no matter what. And Rosemary finishes the ritual where she swallows a sword by moonlight and snow, and we don't know what that's for. But as we were wrapping up, and as I was packing up, and I asked everybody if there was anything they needed to add to the story, Magnolia's player said, I want to use my story point to see if there's anything else I remember. So I shared with her a second flashback I had in my back pocket for later, which was the day of Seldar's Folly, when Rosemary came to Magnolia and said, we have to split paths. I have to stay here and you have to go with Gadramon. And Magnolia said, no. What if something happens to you? And Rosemary said, I can do one more ritual to make sure that you're always near me, that we are always bound. And Magnolia said, yes, of course. And we don't see what that ritual is. So that's the session. We got a lot done, but I don't feel like there is a lot resolved. Krim is out of the picture. He might come back at some point, but that player is going to have to make a backup character and introduce him next session, and we'll see where that goes. My critique this week is that while I liked all of these individual moments, especially the fact that the players have agency and are really choosing the path, I feel that the whole is lesser than the sum of its parts. There was something that was off about this session. I feel like the characters are all going in different directions and have different mindsets about their interpretation of events, which is good from a dramatic perspective, but from a game perspective and a group perspective, it means that we're not really unified in a purpose and a story, and we might have to have some kind of come to Jesus moment about that. But I'll leave that up to my players. Maybe they had a completely different interpretation of how things went than how it went for me. And I'm curious about what you think about this story as we essentially finish the first half and we move into the second half, which will be all about Malima and what happens there. I am excited to see what becomes of the ghost of Karohar.